The wedding hall fell silent when the billionaire stood up. Not the polite hush of respect, but the kind of silence that sucked the air out of the room. Crystal chandeliers glimmered above rows of stunned guests, bankers, politicians, chiefs, and socialites dressed in expensive lace and tailored suits. At the center aisle, the bride froze. Amara Kingston's fingers trembled around the bouquet as her father's voice cut through the hall, calm and deadly. "The wedding will not continue," Elijah Kingston said. "Not like this." A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. Amara's groom, one of the wealthiest young investors in the city, turned sharply toward the billionaire, confusion written across his face. The officiant stepped back. Cameras stopped clicking. Every eye locked on Elijah Kingston, a man whose word could raise companies or bury lives. Amara swallowed. Her heart pounded. She knew that tone. Her father took a step forward, his polished shoes echoing on marble. He did not look at the groom. He looked at his daughter. "You will not marry this man," he said. "You will marry the mechanic." A sharp cry escaped someone in the crowd. Amara's knees nearly buckled. "Daddy, what?" Elijah's eyes hardened. "The poor mechanic you almost rendered useless, the one you left on the roadside to bleed." The hall erupted. "What mechanic? Is this a joke?" "Rendered useless." Amara shook her head wildly. "That was an accident. He came out of nowhere." Elijah raised a hand, silencing her. "His name is Samuel Okorie. He is alive because villagers carried him to a clinic after your driver sped away. His right leg may never work the same again." Amara's bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. "Father, please," she whispered. "You can't do this to me, not here." Elijah leaned closer, his voice low but sharp enough to cut steel. "This is exactly where I will do it, because this is where you must learn that wealth does not excuse cruelty." Security guards appeared at the doors. The groom's family stood frozen, humiliated. Amara's mother began to cry. Then Elijah delivered the final blow. "The marriage will take place in 30 days, he announced. "You will live as that man's wife, or you will leave this family with nothing." Amara screamed. The hall descended into chaos. And just as her world shattered, a man stood at the back of the room, leaning on a cane, face pale, eyes burning, watching her as if fate itself had dragged him there. The mechanic. The moment Amara's eyes met his, the room seemed to tilt. Cut. Weeks earlier, Amara Kingston's life had been perfect. She was 24, beautiful, sharp-tongued, and raised in a world where no was a word other people heard, never her. The Kingston estate sat on acres of manicured land, guarded gates, and quiet power. Elijah Kingston had built his fortune from nothing: oil, logistics, property, but he raised his children in luxury he never knew. Amara believed that luxury was her birthright. She drove fast cars, wore expensive clothes, and treated the city like her personal playground. People laughed at her jokes even when they were cruel. Men admired her confidence. Women envied her freedom. And she never thought consequences applied to her. The night everything changed, rain fell hard and sudden, drenching the city streets. Amara sat in the back of her father's black SUV, scrolling through her phone, barely listening as her driver complained about traffic. "Hurry up," she snapped. "I'm late." The road narrowed near an old industrial area where streetlights flickered like tired eyes. A broken-down car sat half on the road, hazard lights blinking weakly. Beside it, a man worked under the hood, rain soaking his clothes. "Madam, slow down," the driver said. "Too late." The man stepped back suddenly, waving his hands. The impact was sickening. The car jolted. The sound of bone against metal echoed through the rain. Amara's phone flew from her hand. She gasped, heart racing. The driver slammed the brakes, breathing hard. "Oh my God," he whispered. Through the windshield, they saw the man lying on the wet road, twisted, not moving. Amara's chest tightened. For a brief second, just one, fear pierced her confidence. "Get out," the driver said shakily. "We need to help him." Amara grabbed his arm. Are you crazy? People will start coming. Call my father, call the police. Do you know what this will do to me? Madam, he could be dead. Amara's eyes darted around the empty street. Rain washed over the scene, hiding blood, hiding truth. Drive, she said. The driver hesitated. Drive, she screamed. The car pulled away, leaving the man alone on the road. Amara leaned back, breathing hard, telling herself it wasn't her fault. He shouldn't have been there. He should have looked. Someone else would help him. She never asked his name. She never looked back. Days later, the story reached Elijah Kingston anyway. Not from the police, not from the papers. From a woman who sold roasted corn near the roadside. She recognized the car. She recognized the driver. And she recognized the kind of man Elijah Kingston was. Elijah listened without interrupting. When she finished, he thanked her and sent his people to find the injured man. Samuel Okorie was found in a small village clinic, feverish, his leg wrapped in dirty bandages, his mechanic tools stacked neatly beside his bed. He was quiet, proud, and refused pity. Elijah Kingston wants to see you, the man's assistant said. Samuel laughed bitterly. To pay me to disappear. Elijah shook his head when they met. To face what my daughter did. Samuel did not beg. He did not shout. He told the truth. And that truth shook a billionaire more than any business loss ever had. Elijah returned home that night and looked at Amara differently. Not as his daughter, but as a problem he had failed to correct. He canceled meetings. He watched her laugh at parties, plan her wedding, complain about small things. He imagined Samuel lying in the rain. And he decided punishment was not enough. Correction was required. The wedding announcement shocked society. Elijah Kingston's daughter marrying beneath her class to a poor mechanic. No one knew the full reason. Amara only learned the truth when her father summoned her to his study. You will marry him, Elijah said calmly. I won't, Amara replied, laughing nervously. You'll cool down. Elijah's gaze did not soften. Then you will leave this house. She thought he was bluffing. Until the wedding day came. Until the hall fell silent. Until she saw the mechanic standing there, alive, broken, and unafraid. And as the doors closed behind her ruined dreams, Amara realized her father was not punishing her. He was handing her over to the consequences she had abandoned on the roadside. The mechanic took one slow step forward. And the future neither of them wanted began. The news spread faster than wildfire. By morning, blogs screamed headlines, radio hosts argued on air, and whispers followed Amara Kingston like shadows. The billionaire's daughter was being forced to marry a poor mechanic. Some called it justice. Others called it madness. Amara called it humiliation. She sat stiffly in the back seat of her father's car as it rolled through streets she had never bothered to notice before, unpaved roads, open drains, faded shops with hand-painted signs. This was not her world, yet her father insisted on bringing her here. Why are we here? She snapped, arms crossed tightly. Elijah Kingston did not look at her. You will see where your choices lead. The car stopped in front of a small compound with cracked walls and a rusted gate. A generator hummed somewhere nearby. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. This is his workshop, Elijah said. Amara laughed, sharp and bitter. You expect me to marry a man who fixes cars in this place? Elijah finally turned to her. You almost ended his life on a road worse than this. Inside the workshop, Samuel Okorie sat on a low stool, tightening a bolt with careful hands. His leg was stretched out, stiff, wrapped in a brace. He moved slowly, deliberately, every motion practiced through pain. When he looked up and saw Amara, his jaw tightened. For a long moment, no one spoke. So, Samuel said finally, voice steady, this is the woman who left me to die. Amara flinched. I didn't know you'd be here. A muscle twitched in his face. You didn't care. Elijah stepped forward. Samuel, this is my daughter, I am. I know who you are, Samuel interrupted. The man with enough money to make problems disappear. Elijah nodded. And enough power to make my child face hers. Amara stared between them, anger rising. Father, stop this. He's enjoying this. Samuel shook his head. No, I'm surviving it. Silence fell again. Elijah cleared his throat. The marriage will hold, but it will not be empty punishment. Amara will live here. She will learn. Amara's eyes widened. Live here. In this house, Elijah said firmly. No staff, no driver, no allowances. Amara laughed hysterically. You can't be serious. Samuel stood up slowly, leaning on his cane. I didn't ask for this, he said. I don't want a forced wife. I want my life back. Elijah met his gaze. And you will have it, with compensation beyond money. Samuel looked at Amara, his eyes unreadable. Then she will work. Amara recoiled. Excuse me. She will work here, Samuel continued. Clean, assist, learn. If she is to wear my name, she will understand my world. Amara opened her mouth to protest, but Elijah raised a warning finger. This is not a discussion. The next week was torture. Amara moved into a small room with peeling paint and a narrow bed. Her expensive clothes were replaced with simple dresses. Her phone was taken. Her credit cards were frozen. The first morning, Samuel handed her a broom. Start with the floor, he said. She stared at it as if it were a weapon. I don't do this. He leaned closer. Then leave, walk away. But know this, your father will not catch you when you fall. Her pride screamed louder than fear. She took the broom. Sweat soaked her back within minutes. Dust filled her nose. Her hands blistered. Mechanics laughed quietly, shaking their heads in disbelief. This is madness, she muttered. Samuel overheard. This is life. At night, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the accident. For the first time, the image did not slide away easily. The rain, the sound, the still body. Across the compound, Samuel sat alone, rubbing his injured leg, haunted by a different memory. The moment he realized the car was not stopping. Days turned into weeks. Amara learned to wash greasy tools, fetch spare parts, cook simple meals. She hated every second, yet something strange happened. People stopped fearing her. They spoke to her honestly. And Samuel, cold, distant Samuel, watched her quietly, measuring every step. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Amara slipped on spilled oil and fell hard. Pain shot through her ankle. She cried out before she could stop herself. Samuel was beside her instantly. Don't move, he said, helping her sit. Their eyes met, close this time. His hands were rough, steady. Concern flickered across his face before he masked it. You see, he said softly, it only takes one mistake. Amara looked down, ashamed. I didn't mean to hurt you. Samuel stiffened. Intent doesn't erase damage. That night, Amara cried quietly into her pillow. For the first time in her life, tears were not for herself alone. But change never comes without resistance. Unknown to both of them, someone was watching. And they did not like what this forced marriage was becoming. Before the next sunrise, a decision would be made that would push this fragile balance toward danger. And nothing would ever be the same again. If this story is already pulling you in, take a moment to support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who enjoys deep, emotional stories like this. Also, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And be honest, what would you have done if you were in Amara's place? Would you accept this punishment or walk away? Share your thoughts below. The tension did not announce itself loudly. It crept in quietly, like heat rising before a storm. Amara began to notice it in small ways. The mechanic who used to joke freely around Samuel now went silent whenever Amara entered the workshop. Neighbors who had warmed up to her suddenly watched from behind doors. Even the air felt different, heavier, cautious. Samuel noticed too. He had lived in this area long enough to recognize when eyes lingered too long and conversations stopped too quickly. Trouble did not always come with noise. Sometimes it came with smiles that did not reach the eyes. One afternoon, as Amara scrubbed oil-stained rags behind the workshop, Samuel leaned closer and spoke quietly. "Do you know why people here survive?" he asked. She shrugged, "Because they have no choice." He shook his head, "Because they mind their business, and lately people are watching ours." Amara frowned. "Watching how?" Before he could answer, a sleek black car rolled slowly past the compound. It did not belong there. The windows were tinted. It did not stop, but it did not speed up either. Amara felt a chill. "Is that normal?" Samuel's jaw tightened. "No." That night, Samuel locked the gate earlier than usual. Amara sat on the edge of her bed, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood, dogs barking, distant music, murmured voices. For the first time since arriving, fear wrapped around her chest. She thought of her father's mansion, its bright lights and guards. She wondered if this was what Samuel felt every night. The next morning brought unexpected news. Elijah Kingston arrived unannounced. The compound buzzed as people gathered, whispering. Amara rushed out, heart racing. "Daddy," she said, relief flooding her voice. Elijah studied her carefully. Her hands were rougher now, her face thinner. Something in her eyes had changed. "You look different," he said. She didn't know whether that was praise or judgment. Samuel stood a short distance away, leaning on his cane, wary. "I came to check progress," Elijah said calmly, "and to warn you." "Warn us about what?" Amara asked. Elijah lowered his voice. "Power never enjoys being challenged. Some of my associates are unhappy with this arrangement. They think I've lost control." Samuel scoffed softly. "Because you chose morality over pride." Elijah nodded. "Because I exposed something ugly." Amara's stomach dropped. "Are we in danger?" Elijah did not answer immediately. That silence told her enough. "I will increase security around the area," he said finally. "But understand this, some lessons attract enemies." Samuel met his gaze. "Then we face them." Elijah's eyes flickered with respect. Before leaving, Elijah pulled Amara aside. "You still have a choice," he said quietly. "End this now, walk away." Amara looked back at the workshop. At Samuel, tightening bolts despite the pain in his leg. At the people whose lives she had begun to touch. "I don't want to run," she said. Elijah studied her, surprised, then nodded once and left. That evening, Samuel confronted her. "You don't belong in this danger," he said. "You can still leave." Amara shook her head. "I don't get to decide that alone anymore." For the first time, Samuel smiled, just slightly. The attack came 3 nights later. Amara woke to the sound of metal crashing. Shouts followed, then glass shattered. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she rushed outside. Shadows moved fast, too fast. "Get inside," Samuel shouted. Men stormed the workshop, overturning tools, smashing engines, setting fire to oil-soaked rags. Flames leapt hungrily. Amara froze, panic gripping her. Samuel grabbed her arm and dragged her behind a concrete wall, just as something exploded nearby. "Stay down," he ordered. Sirens wailed in the distance, but the attackers vanished before help arrived, leaving destruction behind. The workshop burned. By dawn, nothing remained but blackened walls and twisted metal. Amara stared at the ruins, tears streaming down her face. "This is my fault," she whispered. Samuel's voice was hoarse. "No, this is what happens when the powerful are embarrassed." She turned to him. "Then why am I still standing?" He looked at her carefully. "Because maybe you're not who you were anymore." The loss changed everything. Without the workshop, Samuel had no income. Without income, the future collapsed. Neighbors rallied, offering food, shelter, help. Amara worked tirelessly, organizing support, apologizing when words fell short. And for the first time, people listened. One night, as they sat outside under a sky heavy with stars, Samuel spoke quietly. "They didn't just burn my work," he said. "They sent a message." Amara swallowed. "What message?" That I should let go of this marriage, of you. She met his eyes. Will you? He was silent for a long moment. No, he said finally, not yet. But danger had only introduced itself. And the next move would not come from strangers in the dark. It would come from someone far closer. Someone Amara trusted. And when that betrayal revealed itself, it would force a choice neither of them was ready to make. The ashes of the workshop still smelled of smoke when help arrived from an unexpected place. A silver SUV pulled into the compound just after sunrise. From it stepped Marcus Hale, Amara's former fiancé. He looked exactly as she remembered. Polished shoes, tailored jacket, confidence worn like armor. But his eyes moved quickly, taking in the damage, the poverty, the people. Amara, he said softly, as if speaking to someone fragile. I heard what happened. Samuel stiffened beside her. Marcus extended his hand to Samuel. You must be the mechanic. Samuel ignored the hand. I was. Marcus smiled thinly. I can help, this didn't have to happen. Amara's stomach twisted. What are you doing here, Marcus? I came to fix a mistake, he said, lowering his voice. This marriage was never meant to be real. Samuel laughed once, humorless. Funny how real the fire felt. Marcus turned to Amara. Come back with me. Your father will listen if you're safe. I'll rebuild his trust. I'll rebuild your life. Amara hesitated. And Samuel saw it. Later that day, Elijah Kingston arrived again, his expression grim. The attack was meant as a warning, he said. Marcus's investors are among those embarrassed by my decision. Marcus nodded calmly. Then let me remove the embarrassment, end this arrangement. Samuel looked at Elijah. So this is the cost of principle. Elijah did not deny it. Principle is expensive. Amara spoke before fear could stop her. I won't leave. Marcus stared at her. You don't belong here. Neither did Samuel belong on that road, she replied quietly. That night, Amara overheard voices outside. Marcus and Elijah. You're risking everything, Marcus said. She'll hate you for this. She must learn, Elijah replied, even if it breaks her. Amara stepped back, heart pounding. She realized then that her father had always expected this marriage to fail. And Samuel was paying the price. The next morning, Samuel was gone. His cane leaned against the wall. His bag was missing. Amara panicked, searching the compound, calling his name. Neighbors avoided her eyes. Finally, an old woman spoke. He left before dawn, said some battles are not worth the bodies they leave behind. Amara ran to the road, where she had once driven away without stopping. She stood there, shaking, finally understanding what it meant to be abandoned. Behind her, Marcus watched silently. And far away, Samuel walked with pain and pride, unaware that the next decision Amara would make could destroy her father's empire, or save a broken man forever. Samuel did not go far. Pain limited his steps, but pride drove him forward. He walked until the sun climbed high and the dust burned his throat, then stopped at a half-finished church at the edge of another neighborhood. The builders knew him. They gave him water and a place to sit without questions. He stared at his injured leg and wondered how many times a man could start over before something inside him finally broke. Back at the compound, Amara refused to sit still. She ignored Marcus's calls. She ignored her father's messages. She walked the streets asking questions, her voice hoarse by afternoon. Have you seen a man with a cane? A mechanic, quiet, limp. Most shook their heads. Some pointed vaguely. Finally, a boy spoke up. He passed this way early, toward the old church. Amara ran. By the time she reached the church, her shoes were ruined, her breath ragged. She found Samuel sitting alone, staring at the sky through broken rafters. He did not turn when she approached. You shouldn't be here, he said calmly. She stopped a few steps away. You shouldn't have left. Silence stretched between them. I was protecting you, Samuel said, and myself. From what? She asked. From becoming your lesson, he replied. I didn't survive that road to be crushed slowly by politics and guilt. Amara swallowed hard. I didn't come to beg. He looked at her then, surprised. I came to choose, she continued. I spent my whole life being chosen for. I'm done. Samuel studied her face. The arrogance was gone. In its place stood resolve and fear. I walked away from my father, she said. From Marcus, from everything I knew. If this marriage ends, it won't be because you ran. You don't understand the cost, Samuel said quietly. I'm starting to, she replied. He looked away. They burned my livelihood. They'll do worse. Then let them face me, Amara said. Not you alone. For a long moment, Samuel said nothing. Then he stood slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. If you stay, he warned, there's no going back. Amara nodded. I know. They returned to the compound together at dusk. The reaction was immediate. Neighbors whispered. Marcus's face darkened. Elijah Kingston arrived within the hour. This has gone far enough, Elijah said, his voice tight. You're coming home. No, Amara replied. You're endangering lives, Elijah snapped. So did I that night, she said evenly. And you protected me. I won't hide anymore. Samuel stepped forward. Sir, this is no longer about punishment. Elijah looked at him sharply. Then what is it? Responsibility, Samuel said. Shared. Elijah's jaw clenched. For the first time, the billionaire looked unsure. Marcus broke the silence. You're destroying yourself for nothing. Amara turned to him. You never loved me. You loved the version of me that didn't make you uncomfortable. Marcus laughed bitterly. You think this man will save you? Samuel spoke calmly. No one is saving anyone. That night, Elijah left without another word. 2 days later, the pressure intensified. Suppliers refused to sell to the compound. Friends stopped visiting. Rumors spread, ugly ones. Amara overheard a woman whisper, she deserves whatever happens. Samuel heard it too. The breaking point came when a letter arrived. No name, no signature. Just a warning. Leave the marriage, or the next fire won't stop at property. Amara's hands shook as she read it. Samuel closed his eyes. This is what I feared. She looked up at him. Then let's stop running. He frowned. How? Amara took a breath. By telling the truth, all of it. Within days, Elijah Kingston's name dominated headlines again, but this time not for business. A press conference was announced. When Elijah stepped up to the podium, Amara stood beside him. So did Samuel. Cameras flashed. Elijah spoke slowly. My daughter committed a crime. She fled responsibility. I enabled her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Samuel said nothing. Amara did. I hurt a man and left him, she said clearly. This marriage began as punishment. It continues as choice. Reporters shouted questions. Marcus watched from the back, face pale. That night, Elijah faced consequences he had long avoided. Investigations, lawsuits, public scrutiny. But something else happened too. Support poured in. People donated. Mechanics offered tools. Lawyers volunteered time. The compound buzzed with activity again. Samuel looked at the rebuilt workshop plans one evening and shook his head. I never wanted this kind of attention. Amara smiled faintly. Neither did I, but here we are. He studied her. Do you regret it? She didn't answer immediately. No, she said finally. I regret who I was before. Samuel nodded slowly. But peace was fragile. Marcus had not made his last move. And as the rebuilt workshop rose from ashes, so did a threat that would test whether love born from guilt could survive truth. The next chapter would force Samuel to confront a choice darker than anger. And Amara would learn that redemption demands more than sacrifice. It demands courage when everything can still be lost. The rebuilt workshop opened quietly, without music or ceremony. Fresh paint covered the walls, New tools hung neatly in place, and donated engines waited patiently to be revived. It was not grand, but it was alive. For Samuel, it felt like standing in a place that had once been a grave and finding flowers growing there. Amara arrived early each morning. She swept, logged expenses, spoke to customers with calm respect. People still stared at her, still whispered, but fewer spat words like before. Some even smiled. Change, she was learning, was slow and unforgiving. Samuel watched her from a distance, careful not to confuse gratitude with affection. What they shared was complicated, built from pain, forged by truth, tested by danger. And danger had not gone away. One afternoon, a luxury car pulled up across the street and parked. It stayed there long after business hours ended. Samuel noticed first. "Go inside," he told Amara quietly. She followed his gaze. "That car, been there since morning." "I know." When the car finally drove off, Samuel locked the gate and leaned heavily on his cane. "They're waiting," he said. "Who?" Amara asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Men who don't like losing." That night, Samuel could not sleep. His leg throbbed, his thoughts raced. He replayed the accident again, not the impact, but the moment just before it. The headlights. The certainty that the car would stop. It hadn't. The next day, a visitor arrived unannounced. Marcus Hale walked into the workshop alone. No guards, no smile. "I came to talk," he said. Samuel did not invite him to sit. "You've said enough already." Marcus glanced at Amara. "I need 5 minutes, alone." Amara hesitated, then nodded and stepped away. Marcus lowered his voice. "This has gone too far. Investors are pulling out. Your story has made enemies you can't see." Samuel crossed his arms. "So you burn workshops now?" Marcus stiffened. "You have no proof." "I don't need proof," Samuel replied. "I need peace." Marcus leaned closer. "Then end this marriage, publicly, today." Samuel studied him. "And if I do?" Marcus's eyes hardened. "Then Amara will pay for your pride." Samuel felt something cold settle in his chest. "She's not your shield," Marcus continued. "She's your weakness." Samuel said nothing. Marcus smiled thinly and left. That evening, Samuel told Amara everything. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked only one question. "Do you want out?" He met her eyes. "I don't want you hurt." "That's not the answer," she said gently. Samuel exhaled. "Then no, I don't want out." Amara nodded. "Then neither do I." The attack came 3 days later. This time, it wasn't fire. It was silence. The power went out across the area just before midnight. The streetlights died. Phones lost signal. Amara was in the kitchen when she heard the gate creak. Samuel grabbed his cane and moved fast despite the pain. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Shadows slipped into the compound. Footsteps, breathing. Samuel stepped forward. "This ends now," he said loudly. A voice laughed in the dark. "You're braver than you look." A struggle followed, short, brutal. Samuel fell hard, pain exploding through his leg. Amara screamed. Before anyone could reach them, headlights flooded the compound. Police sirens wailed. The attackers fled. When the dust settled, Samuel lay on the ground, clutching his leg, face pale. Amara knelt beside him, shaking. I'm here." He looked up at her. "I told you the cost." She swallowed tears. "And I told you I'd pay it too." Samuel was taken to the hospital. The diagnosis was clear. The leg had worsened. Surgery was needed, expensive surgery. Elijah Kingston arrived before dawn. He looked at Samuel, then at his daughter. "This ends now," Elijah said quietly. "I will make this right." Amara shook her head. "Not by taking him away from me." Elijah's voice trembled. "You think this is love?" "I think it's responsibility," she replied. Samuel watched them both. "Sir," he said weakly, "if you want this to stop, let it be my choice." Elijah stared at him. "And what is your choice?" Samuel took a breath. I will not end this marriage to satisfy threats. Elijah closed his eyes. Surgery was scheduled. The night before, Samuel asked Amara to sit with him. If I don't walk the same again, he said quietly, you're free. She shook her head. You don't get to release me from a choice I made willingly. He smiled faintly. You've changed. So have you, she said. The surgery was successful, but the recovery would be long. Marcus was arrested 2 days later. Evidence surfaced, financial trails, witnesses, threats recorded. The powerful had miscalculated. As Samuel rested, Amara stood outside the hospital, watching the sun rise. For the first time, she felt something close to peace. But peace never stays long. A letter arrived that morning, addressed to Samuel. No threats. Just one line. Now that the truth is out, are you ready to hear mine? Samuel read it slowly. And whatever was written, there drained the color from his face. Samuel read the letter 3 times before folding it carefully and slipping it into his pocket. Amara noticed immediately. What is it? She asked. Someone from my past, he said. Someone I thought I buried with the pain. She waited. He did not continue. Recovery was slow, painful. Samuel learned again how to stand, how to balance, how to trust his leg. Amara was there for every step, steady and patient. Nurses whispered about the billionaire's daughter who washed bedsheets and fed her husband with her own hands. But Samuel's mind was elsewhere. 3 days later, the sender of the letter appeared. Her name was Ruth Okorie. She arrived at the workshop in the afternoon, standing quietly at the gate. She was in her late 30s, dressed simply, eyes tired but sharp. When Samuel saw her, his grip tightened on his cane. You came, he said. I had to, Ruth replied. Her gaze shifted to Amara. So this is her. Amara straightened. I'm Amara. Ruth nodded. I know. They sat inside the half-open workshop, the sound of metal tapping in the distance. Samuel spoke slowly, choosing his words. Ruth is my older sister, he said, the one who raised me after our parents died. Amara blinked. You never mentioned. Because she left, Samuel interrupted. She took everything we had and disappeared. Ruth inhaled sharply. That's not true. Samuel's voice hardened. You sold our father's land. You promised to come back. I was trying to save us, Ruth said. Men were circling, dangerous men. I ran. And left me to starve, Samuel replied. Silence pressed in. Ruth turned to Amara. You think you know him. You don't know what he's capable of. Samuel slammed his cane against the floor. Enough. Ruth stood. I came because your name is everywhere now, and because those men are back. Amara's heart skipped. What men? The ones who wanted our land, Ruth said. The ones behind the attack. Samuel's jaw clenched. Marcus. Ruth nodded. He bought old debts, old grudges. He found me first. Amara stood slowly. You knew this and said nothing. I wanted to see if he'd run again, Ruth said, looking at Samuel. He didn't. Samuel exhaled. Then why are you here? Ruth hesitated. Because the land you think is gone was never sold. I hid it, in your name. Samuel stared at her. It's worth millions now, she continued, and they want it. The room spun. Amara whispered, so this was never about us. Samuel shook his head. It became about us. That night, Samuel could not sleep. He sat outside, staring into the dark, wrestling with anger, betrayal, and the weight of choices made long before Amara entered his life. She joined him quietly. You don't have to face this alone. He looked at her. This started long before you. And it ends with us, she replied. The next morning, Elijah Kingston arrived, summoned by Samuel. They laid everything out. The land, the threats, Marcus's network. Elijah listened, expression grim. Then this isn't finished. No, Samuel agreed, but it ends clean. Ruth watched from the doorway, guilt etched across her face. That evening, Samuel made a decision. He would claim the land publicly. And by doing so, he would force the final confrontation. As news broke, reactions were swift. Lawyers called, investors panicked, old enemies surfaced. And somewhere in a cell, Marcus smiled. Because he knew something Samuel didn't. The land wasn't the final prize. Amara was. And the next move would test whether love forged in consequence could survive deliberate cruelty. As Samuel locked the workshop that night, he felt the old fear return, not of pain, not of loss, but of choosing wrong again. Behind him, Amara stood firm. Ahead of them, the truth waited, with teeth. And it was ready to bite. The land announcement changed everything. Within 48 hours, Samuel's name moved from human interest stories to business headlines. Commentators argued on television. Some praised the mechanic who turned out to be a hidden landowner. Others mocked him, calling him a pawn in a billionaire's moral experiment. Samuel ignored the noise. What mattered was the tension he could feel tightening around them like a rope. Men began showing up at the workshop pretending to be customers. They asked the wrong questions, looked too long at Amara, left without fixing anything. Ruth stayed close, her guilt turning into fierce protection. "This is exactly how it started years ago," she warned. Friendly faces before threats. Elijah Kingston moved quietly behind the scenes. He did not flaunt his power this time. He documented, he recorded, he waited. Amara felt the pressure in different ways. Strangers sent messages online blaming her for everything. Some called her a gold digger. Others said she had manipulated a poor man to cleanse her sins. She read them all. And for the first time, she did not run from the truth in them. One evening, as Samuel closed the gate, Amara noticed a man across the street pretending to talk on his phone. "He's been there all day," she said. Samuel nodded. "I know." That night, Ruth finally spoke the words she had been avoiding. "They don't just want the land," she said quietly. "They want control, and the easiest way to break a man is through what he loves." Amara met Samuel's eyes. "Then I should leave." The words hung heavy. Samuel shook his head immediately. "No." "If I go," she continued, "they lose leverage." "They'll find another," he replied. "Fear always does." "Look down. I'm not afraid for myself." Samuel reached for her hand, his grip firm despite the pain. "I am." Before either could say more, headlights flooded the compound. Police cars. Elijah Kingston stepped out, his face hard. "It's time," he said. "We move tonight." "What happened?" asked. Elijah exhaled. "Is talking, not out of regret, out of desperation. He's trading names for leniency." Samuel's stomach dropped, including mine. Elijah nodded. "And yours and the land." Ruth cursed under her breath. "Then it's worse than we thought." "They plan to force a sale," Elijah continued. "Through intimidation, through scandal, through you." Silence followed. Samuel looked at, seeing the fear she was trying to hide. "I won't let them use you," he said. She lifted her chin. "Then don't push me away. Stand with me." Elijah watched them both. "This is the moment that decides everything," he said. "Family, legacy, truth. Once we step forward, there's no turning back." That night, they barely slept. Before dawn, Samuel received a call from an unknown number. He answered. A familiar voice laughed softly on the other end. "You should have walked away when you had the chance," said, "because tomorrow the world finds out who she really is." The line went dead. Minutes later, phone buzzed. A message. A video thumbnail. Her breath caught. It was footage from years ago, her laughing at a party, bragging about how nothing ever touched her, spliced with images of the accident scene, edited to look intentional, heartless. "They're going to destroy you," Samuel whispered. Closed her eyes, then opened them steady. "No," she said. "They're going to test whether the truth can survive lies." As the sun rose, news alerts began flashing across screens. The storm had broken. By noon, The city was on fire with opinion. Screens everywhere replayed the edited video, laughter slowed, her words stripped of context, the accident reframed as intention. Commentators shouted, hashtags rose, and some demanded her arrest. Others demanded Samuel leave her. A few demanded Elijah Kingston step down from every board he sat on. Truth, once released, does not arrive gently. Samuel stood beside as reporters gathered outside the compound gates. He could feel the tremor in her hand, but her posture remained straight. She had learned something pain could teach better than privilege ever had: how to stand without applause. Elijah Kingston arrived without spectacle. No convoy, no press statement, just a man who had finally decided to stop managing the story and start telling it. Inside the compound, lawyers waited. So did Ruth. So did police officers with warrants that cut both ways. "Has named names," Elijah said quietly, "and they match our evidence." Samuel nodded. "Then it's time." They walked out together. The questions came like stones. Did she mean to kill him? Is this marriage a stunt? Did money buy silence? Samuel raised his hand. The noise fell, not because he was powerful, but because he was calm. "This marriage began as punishment," he said clearly. "It continues as responsibility, and it ends today in truth." Stepped forward. "I left a man on the road," she said. "That is true. I was afraid. I was arrogant. I was wrong." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I did not plan harm," she continued. "But harm happened because of me. I ran from it. Then I was brought back to face it, not by money, not by pity, but by consequence." She turned to Samuel. "I did not marry him to save myself," she said. "I stayed because I learned who I was when I had nothing to hide behind." A reporter shouted, "Is this an apology tour?" Met the camera's eye. "No, this is ownership." Elijah stepped forward then. "I protected my daughter when I should have protected the truth," he said. "I used power to delay justice. I will not do that again." He handed documents to the authorities, records, communications, financial trails. Names were read aloud. Hale's network laid bare. The crowd buzzed. From the back, a police vehicle arrived. Stepped out in cuffs, face tight with fury. He searched for eyes, found them, and laughed. "You think this saves you?" he called out. Did not answer. Samuel did. "It saves the truth," he said, "and that's enough." Was led away. The days that followed were heavy but honest. Charges were filed. Investigations widened. Elijah resigned from boards and accepted penalties that could not be negotiated away. He returned properties acquired through influence. He funded clinics along highways where accidents were common, not as charity, but as responsibility. Samuel underwent more therapy. He learned to walk without the cane on good days and with it on bad ones. He reopened the workshop with new partners from the community. The sign above the door remained simple. Work was steady, trust took longer. Faced court. She pleaded guilty to leaving the scene. She did not ask for special treatment. The sentence was measured: community service, restitution, a suspended term. It was not a spectacle. It was a process. She served it fully. On the day it ended, she returned to the road where it had begun. She stood there quietly and placed a small marker, not a monument, just a sign reminding drivers to slow down. She paid for it herself. Ruth sold a portion of the land to create an apprenticeship center for young mechanics. The rest remained protected, untouchable by pressure or threat. She stayed close, finally present, earning forgiveness not with words but with time. One evening, months later, Samuel sat outside the workshop as the sun dipped low. "People still stare," said. Samuel smiled faintly. "Let them. We're not here to be invisible." She nodded. "Are you glad you didn't walk away?" He considered the question carefully. "I'm glad I chose." They did not rush anything. Love, when it came, arrived without drama, quiet, earned, steady. Not a rescue, not a reward. A partnership shaped by consequence and kept by truth. The city moved on. Stories faded. New scandals replaced old ones. But some lessons stayed. On a busy afternoon, a young driver stopped to help a stranded man on the roadside. Others joined. Traffic slowed. No one honked. Samuel watched from a distance and breathed easier. Because this story did not end with punishment, it ended with change. And sometimes, that is the rarest justice of all. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who values powerful, meaningful stories. We'd also love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? And finally, what would you have done if you were in position? Do you believe people can truly change when faced with real consequences? Share your thoughts in the comments.